The thematic work by UNESCO UNEVOC on the Sustainable Development Goals and Greening Tibet and on inclusion in Tibet is an example for UNESCO's activities in this area. The third and last strategic priority is to develop skills for inclusive and peaceful societies, for example through global citizenship education. My colleague Robert Parua from the UNESCO Beijing office will speak more about this later. UNESCO aims to promote Tibet institutions as places for social integration and cohesion, as a contribution to more peaceful, tolerant, inclusive and secure societies. In today's globalized world, cultural awareness is more important than ever. Cultural awareness involves values, attitudes and knowledge that display openness and respect for different cultures, religions, languages, manner of dress and customs to avoid conflict and misunderstanding. As UNESCO's International Center for Tibet, UNESCO UNEVOC takes cultural awareness seriously in designing strategies and implementing programs and activities to support the improvement of Tibet systems globally. Cultural awareness is an important skill that we should all strive to develop, along with the technical skills that are taught in Tibet institutions of learning. This workshop will be a meeting point of industry and educational leaders, politicians and government agencies, practitioners and learners to share their experiences, strengthen international collaboration, and plan the development of future initiatives and projects related to outcomes-based cultural awareness and global citizenship education in Tibet. To conclude, my colleagues from UNESCO UNEVOC and I would like to thank you for having invited us to this important workshop. I also hope that the results of the workshop can be shared with other members of the UNEVOC network. Thank you, and I wish you a successful workshop.
I would like to extend our sincere gratitude to thank Dr. Frederick Cooper for the video remarks. His remarks has added immense value and significance to this international workshop. We thank Dr. Cooper very much for his support and commitment to promote the UNESCO UNEVOC Center in this part of the world. So I'm very pleased now to invite Professor Dr. Ahmed Hassani to share his practice on global citizenship education. Dr. Hassani is currently a full professor of mechanical power engineering, Taiwan University in Egypt. He is a former Deputy Minister of Education in charge of Tibet in the Egyptian Cabinet Ministers. Professor Dr. Hassani got his PhD in mechanical power engineering in 1997 from Astrachan University in a student exchange program with the University of Michigan, USA. He has a Bachelor of Science in mechanical power engineering, 1983, from Faculty of Engineering, Manova University, Egypt. So, Dr. Hassani, it's my pleasure to invite you to present at this workshop. Thank you, please. The floor is yours now.
Thank you, James. Thank you for inviting me for this important workshop. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody, and everywhere in the world. And in fact, it was a great pleasure for me to be part of this important workshop under the subject of education for global citizenship or global education, citizenship education, which is a very, very important topic. And my presentation will, can I just share my screen? Okay. How do you see my screen now?
Oh, I'm sorry, I cannot see the screen. Yeah.
So let me see. Okay. Sure. Okay. Sure. Are you seeing it now?
Yeah. It works now. It works now.
Excellent. So my presentation, in fact, I will talk about the climate change mitigation through curriculum. It's as an example of the global citizenship education approach, because if we are talking about the global citizenship, so we need to know what is what is the global citizenship education? In fact, global citizenship education is the education system or the education program that enable or prepare our students to be a global citizen, actually to be a part of the solution of the global issues, like as we just heard from our colleague in UNESCO in the climate change issue, for example. So how can we prepare our students to be part of the solution of these global issues? Because we're all affected by it. So the students should understand that we have a responsibility for our planet. So and our education program has to address all these issues and to prepare our students to be a part of this global arena to address these global issues. Why is global citizenship education? Why should we have this approach or this tool or this approach, as I said? And we all know that the United Nations introduced for the first time the SDGs, the 17 goals of the SDGs back in 2015. So these 17 goals are actually representing the most global issue that we are all affected by. So we are all responsible for addressing these goals and achieving these goals, actually. And one of these goals, the 17th goal, is the goal number 4, which is the education goal, the quality education. And actually, it's not just a goal. The education is also the goal that is responsible for or enabling goal that enable us to achieve the other goals, actually. So education is our tool, is our methodology to achieve these 17 goals, actually. So this is the reason why we should address this global citizenship education issue heavily in our education program. So and also, as we all know, that climate change, for example, is affecting everybody in the global scale. So as you see in the map you're seeing right now, unfortunately, the most affected people in the world, as you see it in the dark color here, in Africa or South Asia or whatever, the most affected people with the climate change risks are the least polluting countries to the issue. And the light colors here in the United States, even in Canada or United States and China and the Russia and so on, they are not affected as much as the African countries, while they are the most polluting countries for our and the most responsible countries for the global climate change issue. So actually, when you look at this map, you will see that we are all responsible, even the affected people and also the emitting countries for the climate change sources. So we need to find a common ground in our education system to address all these issues that makes our global environment at risk. For example, the climate change issue. So how the global citizenship education is being reflected at Helwan University, Egypt? Actually, we are addressing the global citizenship education in 2 dimensions, actually, the local dimension and the global dimension, or the international dimension. In the global, in the local dimension, we have established a couple of years ago an undergraduate program, an undergraduate degree program, which is a Bachelor of Technology degree, to prepare our students to be part of, as I said before, to be part of the solution for the global issue of climate change. So talking about the degree itself, it's not an engineering degree, neither a technician degree. It's a technologist degree. It's a Bachelor of Technology degree and Bachelor of Technology, as we all of us know, that it's a degree that transfer the knowledge into practice or into a real world. So this program, as you see it in the graph to the right here, represented by the red color and the blue color, our program, the program I'm talking about is the program in the middle here. It's not like engineering, as I said. Engineering, we all know that engineering has some 90% of the content of the program to be knowledge based, and just 10% for engineering studies to be skills based. And for the technician, it's vice versa. It's almost 70% skills and 30% knowledge. But our program, the technologist program, the Bachelor of Technology program, is in the middle here, and it actually consists of almost 50-50 constituents of the skills and knowledge. So having said that, so our program actually is composed of 50% skills and 50% knowledge, almost something like that. And for that reason, we need to address this in the content of the program. The structure of the curriculum of our program is composed of mainly of, as you see it here in this green color and blue and red colors. The green color is representing some 50% of the contents of the program, which is the technical subjects of the program. And the blue color is something about 35% of the basic science, linguistics, and national subjects of the program. And for the first time in Egypt, we introduced the 21st century skills as an essential part of the program, which is represented by some 15% or something like that. So this is the structure of the program. And having said that, we should expect that, okay, we have the skills part, we have the knowledge part, and we have this 21st century skills part, and that's why the assessment of this program is following two approach. It's an outcome based actually in general, but we are using specifically the competency based approach for the skills part, and we are using the subject based approach for the knowledge and for the linguistics, the basic science, and so on. So we are using for the assessment of this program, we are using two taxonomies. The Miller taxonomies for the skills part of the program, starting from the learning process and doing and then mastering, and we measure all of this using the Miller taxonomy approach. And for the knowledge part, we are using Bloom taxonomy, which started with remember and then end with the creativity. So just to give you an example, a quick example for one of the semester of our program, as you see it here. As I said before, our program is composed of three main components: the skills part, the knowledge part, and the behavioral part, or the 21st century skills part. So we give each part of them marks. For example, if we have a module that has 100 marks as a whole, then we give it the skills part like 30 marks out of 100, and then we give the behavior marks, the behavior part 20 marks, for example, and then 50 marks for the technical subject marks or the knowledge part. So, but the more important here, because we are following two taxonomies, we are using the competence-based for the skills part, and we all know that the competence-based system has either competent or not yet competent assessment criteria. How we do it in our program, it's something different. It's still follow the competent or not yet competent, but we are doing it in a marks approach. So when we say that we give in one of the modules, for example, if we are giving it 30 marks out of 100 for the skills part, so each student has to get either 0 marks or 30 marks. And if he didn't get the marks for the skills, even if it's 30%, just 30%, he has to repeat the whole module again, and he has to get the 30 marks in order to pass the module. So it's a competent or not yet competent still, but in terms of marks, each student has to get either 0 or 30. So, and if he didn't get 30, then he has to stay with the module until he get the 30, even if it's just 30% of the whole mark. So the second dimension, which is the collaboration with the international partners as a reflection of the global citizenship education approach at Helwan University, we started a program a year ago with Oxford Brookes University in United Kingdom. That was a call from the British Council in Egypt here, actually in view of the COP27 that was held in Egypt last year. So the initiative was to establish a collaboration project between the Egyptian universities and UK universities in terms of the climate change issue. So we established that project. We applied jointly for that project, and we got it. And the project aims actually at 2 main goals or 2 main objectives. The first objective is to refresh the hybrid technology, the curriculum of the hybrid technology program, as I just talked about a minute ago, which is the program itself with the hybrid technology is addressing actually the global issue of the climate change, and also equips our students with the green skills. So the main goal, the main objective, one of the 2 objectives of the project with the Oxford Brookes University was to refresh the curriculum of the program to address heavily the issue of climate change, and actually to bring the practice, in fact the electric car design criteria into the curriculum. So we got, this is the first goal, to address actually the annual Formula Students competition that take place every year in United Kingdom, and to bring the design criteria of this electric car for the competition, and to bring it into the curriculum itself, and to modify the curriculum to address these very practical experience and very practical skills of the electric car design into the curriculum of the hybrid technology bachelor degree in our program. The second main goal of that project was to establish our own Formula Students racing team at Helwan University, at the Faculty of Technology and Education, Helwan University, and in order for those students, this team, this freshly established team, to compete in the global competition of the Formula Students that take place this year, that will take place this year. Later this year in July in United Kingdom, Silverstone, and our students actually done a very clever job preparing the design of the concept class car, and they will go to compete with other colleagues in United Kingdom later this year, and I'm very proud of them. And it's a very clear definition actually of the global citizenship education, either in the local scale or an international scale. I'm done actually, and I will leave you with I will leave the presentation, of course, available at with James and our colleagues, and I will be happy to receive any question afterward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hassani. Your dedication and passion for TVET are evident in your commitment to share knowledge and advancing the frontiers of lifelong learning and work. Thank you very much for sharing your great practice. Now I'm pleased to invite Dr. John Clinton to present TVET and global citizenship. Informative learning theory, outcomes-based education, and enabling learning ability. Dr. John Clinton is SPM visiting professor and Macleod Indoors Chair, New Zealand. Professor Clinton is an international recognized technical and vocational education and training educator and researcher. He has extensive knowledge of quality assurance practices in the design and implementation of programs, assessments, and qualifications. Professor Clinton has facilitated a range of international professional development opportunities in teaching and learning in TVET in Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Thailand, Japan, and the People's Republic of China. He led several New Zealand government-funded ICT deployment projects focused on the implementation of open source systems for learning and assessment. He has been commissioned by the New Zealand Ministry of Education to investigate the impact of blended learning in schools, industry, the workforce, and tertiary institutions. He has recently completed a government research project with China on cultural set approaches to micro-credential development. So now, Dr. Clinton, you're welcome to present at this workshop, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, James, for your kind words. Most appreciated. I'm going to talk, the title is quite long and quite complex, but I just want to point out to you these two little birds here on the side of my presentation. They are the birds that guided the waka that arrived in New Zealand from Matatua. So we are guided in our educational journey by the same birds. So let us begin. Let's have a look at TVET outcomes and competency. We know that workplace tasks can be described in terms of outcomes that successful workers and that our occupation are able to perform repeatedly. And all outcomes have direct implications on the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that workers, trainees must acquire in order to perform the workplace tasks correctly. So let's have a look at some of the terms. Outcomes, what learners are expected to know and are able to do at the desired level of competence or performance. Outcomes-based teaching and learning, constructive alignment of intended learning outcomes with appropriate outcomes-based assessment methods, teaching and learning activities. And then we have the performance criteria, which state in detail the performance that we require. But when we look at global citizenship and TVET, knowledge and skills are always detailed. What is not detailed is attitude. And that's why we have to look at different approaches to dealing with TVET. If we know that an outcome has knowledge, skills, and attitude, why do we only teach knowledge and skills? So this brings in what we call a transformative approach or transformative education. Transformational education is based on the premise that an instructor's purpose is greater than the delivery of information. Transformative teachers guide learners to become active participants in the learning process. So we in New Zealand use what we call the Ranga framework, which was developed by our CEO here. And the guiding principles of this, and this relates to Māori, but it also relates to any population. First, acquisition of knowledge is mediated by an individual's perceptions of their personal identity. And our example, it is Māori identity, or it is Chinese identity, or it is Korean identity, or Japanese identity. And they have an existing knowledge and belief system. For us, it's Mataranga Māori, which is Māori knowledge, and theory. We have a theory of learning, which is called Kaupapa Māori learning theory. But we can expand this to meet any country, China, Indonesia, Pakistan, Egypt, wherever. They all have a cultural belief system, a cultural understanding. And learners' progression should be recognised as a four-stage process. They begin as learners, they research what they need to learn, they increase their knowledge base, and they then get mastery. And this is what we call the transformative approach, which is an holistic program, holistic learning approach. So we need rangatahi, which is youth, which is prepare. What is happening? We have practice, deciding how this has changed people's perceptions. Then we have performance. How can I apply this in my practice? And then we have pursue. How can I learn what is happening? So what happens is learners experience stimuli in situations they don't understand. They need to reflect on this learning and how it's impacting on them. They need to also understand how it's impacting on their cultural beliefs, on their common understandings, and then they can implement a plan to put this into practice. As you can see, this framework provides participants with choices regarding what is learned, where it is learned, when it is learned, and how it is learned. So let's take each phase piece by piece. So we have the first one, which is rangatahi, prepare, disorientation. Here's the scenario, which I'm sure a lot of us has experienced. You take a plane to a city in a foreign country, you leave that plane at an airline gate you have never arrived at before. The airline gate is unfamiliar to you. You are disorientated. You question, what is happening? Why is it happening? And you're relying on your own personal perspectives to answer that question. For the TVET tutor, we are diagnosing, and we call this a feed-forward situation. Through feed-forward, tutors inform learners what they are going to learn, how they will learn, where they will learn. Feed-forward helps students identify what they already know and identify what they need to know in order to plan how to meet the identified outcome. Feed-forward allows learners to draw upon their existing knowledge structures and prepares them to integrate new knowledge within these structures. Feed-forward provides learners with opportunities also to understand and value the existing knowledge structures of other learners within the group. Second phase is critical reflection. This scenario, as you walk through the airline gate, you observe familiar icons and signs. Some indicate endpoints, some indicate services, baggage collection, exits. You start to become orientated. You start to reflect on the potential solutions to your current situation. So things become familiar to you. signs and symbols direct you. And the learning focus here is forming. And we call this assessment. And through assessment, tutors inform learners the actual performance required, how this performance will be measured, and when this performance will take place. Assessment provides learners with information on their progress in meeting the learning outcomes. Assessment provides information how successful they have been on drawing upon their existing knowledge structures and integrating new knowledge within their ways of knowing. Assessment has a powerful effect on students' views of self. Positive results can be motivating, negative results can be demotivating. Then we have what we call the reflective response. Learners review the misfit between their schemas and stimuli. In this scenario, the signs and icons stimulate long-term memory and retrieve familiar previous responses or schemata. So people start to become orientated. They're calling upon their existing knowledge structures to resolve their current situation. They reflect on the previous success and failure of previous experiences, and this provides them with potential solutions. But actions of other passengers triggers further reflection. That means actions of others in the classroom will also generate further reflection. They become action orientated. They are going to do something. What we call this learner focus is performing. And we do feedback on performance. And through performance, tutors inform learners how the learner has performed, how this performance could be improved, and how and when they can demonstrate improvements. The primary purpose of performance is the demonstration of the achievement of learners in knowledge, skills, and attitudes to key stakeholders. Performer is the key driver for student learning. If it's not assessed, it doesn't matter to them, and it can create anxiety. To reduce anxiety, feedback is critical and is most successful for students when it is timely, context sensitive, value and action orientated, i.e. it feeds forward to improve their performance. It tells them what they need to do to improve their activities. And then we have the plan of action. Here's the scenario again. You follow the signs to the exit and baggage claim area. You collect your baggage and move through customs. You reflect on your experience and the success or failure of your actions, and you store this experience in long-term memory for future reference. The learning focus here is reforming. Through reforming, tutors inform learners ways to continually improve their performance, how to value their existing knowledge structures and recognize their existing knowledge structures, and ways to value other participants' knowledge structures, not to dismiss them, but to value them, to seek them, and to appreciate them. The primary purpose of reflection is to empower students to use feedback and feed forward to critically evaluate their future learning strategies. Reflection helps learners to identify successful strategies used to explore their existing knowledge structures and how they integrate new ways of knowing in these established structures. And reflection helps learners to accept and understand they can learn in different ways but can achieve the same desired performance. It's respect for each other. So, as you can see, this is now our full transformative approach. And just to review, learners must engage with the world and find coherence between the world they experience, i.e. their cultural knowledge themselves, in a TVET institution, and the world they wish to participate in outside of that institution. So knowledge is not neutral, it impacts on the way they behave. Teachers are expected to transform their teaching by ensuring that the curriculum, educational approach, learning materials, learning environments are meaningful to diverse learners, young and old, male and female, in multiple cultural contexts. And education systems need to be reorientated to equip all learners with the knowledge, skills, and attitudes to act for the betterment of all people as responsible global citizens. Thank you, and questions will be able to ask questions shortly.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Clinton. Your presentation has undoubtedly enriched the workshop. And for the questions, we will answer the questions at the question and answer sessions later. Okay. So now, ladies and gentlemen, as TV participants, it's my privilege to introduce our next speaker, Professor Yang Jie. Professor Yang Jie is a professor, School of Finance, Economics, and Tourism at Shanxi Polytechnic Institute, China. Her experience as team researcher in the fields of manufacturing management, security investment, and blended learning brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to this international workshop. Professor Yang Jie has published over 20 papers, led one national curriculum construction, 2 provincial projects, and 3 school projects, 3 textbooks. She has built up several online open courses where more than 10,000 people have learned these courses online. Professor Yang Jie, I now invite you to deliberate on educational approaches in enabling health efficiency. Please, the floor is yours. Professor Yang Jie, you mute your sound.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Let me share my screen. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Yang Jie. I've been working in Shanxi Polytechnic Institute for many years and researching on TVET with Professor John Clayton since 2018. Today, I'm honored to be here to give a presentation, Educational Approaches Enabling Cultural Self-Efficiency. As we all know, economic, political, and cultural connections and exchanges between different regions and countries around the world have become more common. How education can help citizens cope with the changes and challenges in globalization has become one of the most urgent research issues in the field of education. This requires us not only insist on cultivating citizens' patriotic feelings and national identity, but also focus on cultivating citizens' global awareness and tolerance of different cultures, and ultimately cultivating competitive global citizens in a globalized society. Firstly, I want to explain these 3 conceptions: cognition, culture, and self. Cognition is a mental action or process of acquiring knowledge and understanding through sound, experience, and the senses. Culture includes the belief, protocols, characteristics and knowledge of a group of people, encompassing language, religion, food, social habits, rituals, music, and arts. Self means a person's essential being that distinguishes them from others, especially considered as the object of introspection of reflexive action. Learners' cultural background impacts on their motivation and engagement, so it influences the cognition. Learning environments need to encourage learners to validate cultural identity. Self-efficiency is significant to learners' motivation. It can be defined as the confidence belief learners have in their academic knowledge, competencies, and make them successfully complete academic assessments or tasks. Let's go back to a simple question. Who am I? Although there are only 3 words in this question, it is very complex. Everyone has different identities and purpose at different times, and all cultural characteristics will affect learners' goals and motivations. If learners are regarded as isolated individuals and not paid attention to their cultural and growth environment, education will have significant deficiencies. But what are some of the key factors that shape our behavior, thinking, and cognitive ability? Western-centric approach. Even though it is acknowledged culture pervades learning and that emotions and context play a significant role in the learning process, Western-centric approach is based solely on cognitive, social, and pedagogic approaches. These approaches do not contextualize the learning experience. For example, they do not address cultural conceptuality. For explicit knowledge or declarative knowledge, it can be clearly defined and the factors that generate it can be described. Learners can speak or repeat the knowledge. It is readily articulated, codified, stored, and accessed, easily communicated to others. This knowledge underpins the concepts of gauges, but it does not adequately describe the reactions, and the behaviors of individuals to stimuli. It does not fully describe the learning process. Assessment is regarded as a product. If learners pass assessment, means they acquire the qualification. If they fail, means they are unqualified. But depth of knowledge does not necessarily mean that graduates are work ready. They have the ability to consistently apply specific disciplinary knowledge in an authentic context. Tutor can use text, audio, video, interactive graphics to broadcast the knowledge. Learners are captured audience. They are passive to receive, repeat, and recall the knowledge. The curriculum construction, mission design, objectives design, and evaluation do not inspire learners' interests, protect their learning confidence, and enhance their satisfaction with course. Then it's hard to stimulate their learning motivation and promote knowledge transfer effectively. However, learner performance success is influenced by their culture instrument. But in the cultural approaches, culture provides learning, and emotions and the context play a significant role in the learning process. Well, Western-centric instructional design models based on pedagogic, andragogic, all learners need to acknowledge and validate their culture self, knowing who they are, where they come from, and what facts influence their engagement. For implicit procedural knowledge, this knowledge is automatically reactive and enable learners to perform specific skills and actions. Previous experience will guide participant actions. For example, we automatically take action to move from a hazard. We will react when we see recognized signals. We will behave in a particular ways when we meet people of standing. We will follow cultural cues. These factors are an integral part of cognition, the way we think. This knowledge can be gained through planned and incidental activities, sometimes without awareness that learning is actually occurring. In cultural environment, learners can develop cultural awareness, cultural confidence, entrepreneurial mindset. Graduates can have the ability to apply, adapt, and transfer their acquired knowledge, skills, and attitude from multiple disciplines in a variety of contexts and situations. And now, curriculum is not a product, but as a process. The designer needs to create an environment that reduces participant disorientation and associated anxiety and facilitates engagement. Learner has awareness of culture self. They engage, examine the knowledge with their different background. Then they re-engage, re-examine with their definite purpose. Tutor, guide, coach, mentor, and facilitate learners' understanding. So tutor is not a performer on the stage. They become the facilitator of the stage. They are co-learners. Learners are active to review, reflect, and repropose. Curriculum construction and teaching design are close to learners' lives and in line with their culture. Allowing students to know what they are learning, why they are learning, is useful and beneficial and can help them solve the authentic problems. When learners appreciate the score, they successfully perform the tune. And at the end of the presentation, I just want to summarize the culture-sensitive learning environments, the key features. So the first, educator needs to have a great understanding of the needs of cultural diverse individuals. The second, educator needs to be able to anticipate changes to existing occupations, the social and the cultural needs of their communities, and the personal ambitions of their learners. The third, modify educational activities to include context-sensitive approaches and encourage personal achievement. The fourth, adapt design and delivery method to keep pace with shifts in cultural influences and individual approaches to learning activities. The last, adopt cognitive approaches that value learners' current capabilities and build learner culture self-efficiency, the belief in their ability to succeed. Okay, thank you. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions, we can chat in Q&A and chat or in the chat. Thank you.
It looks as if James has lost connection for a little while, but if anyone's got it, James is back.
Hello, John. Let me see the questions. Yes, no questions. So if you have no questions, we will continue our presentations. Okay. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, it's my pleasure to introduce an integrated case study advancing global citizenship education in the vocational context. I would like to invite Dr. Benjamin Yuan Chen, the Dean of the Hong Kong Metropolitan University Li Ka-shing School of Professional and Continuing Education, to present this case study. Dr. Benjamin Chen is the Dean of the Hong Kong Metropolitan University Li Ka-shing School of Professional and Continuing Education. He has 3 decades of experience working in higher education, vocational research interest, vocational education, continuing education, and performing arts education. His research interests are in adult education, international education, and vocational education and training. He is an associate editor of the International Journal of Training Research, Canada and Francis, and an editorial board member of the Australian Journal of Adult Learning. Dr. Benjamin Chen, you're welcome to present the case study from your great institution. Please, the floor is yours now. Doctor, please.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank James and Professor Clayton for making this arrangement, for inviting us to present in this conference. Heartfelt congratulations to Shanxi Polytechnic Institute for establishing the UNESCO Univoc Center at your institution. We are a partner institution of Shanxi Polytechnic Institution, so I'm very, very pleased with your achievement. My presentation today is on a case sharing from my university, my school, Hong Kong MU Lee Pace. Hong Kong Metropolitan University is a public sector university in Hong Kong, where we are one of the 9 public universities established by the Hong Kong government. In my school, we offer 2-year higher diploma programs in various disciplines. Basically, most of the programs are vocationally oriented. In Hong Kong, we call it vocational professional education and training. It's similar to what internationally is called TVET, Technical Vocational Education and Training. So my presentation will be divided into 3 parts. The first part, I will be reviewing the concept of GCED and why it is relevant to TVET. And then I will explain about the specific context of Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. And why is it that in the formulation of technical vocational education and training in Hong Kong, we do need to take into account global citizenship education. And then my colleague, Betty, will be sharing some case studies of how we do GCED, not specifically from the formal learning perspective of incorporating it into the curriculum, but rather we do a lot of GCED teaching and learning thing. It happens in the non-formal learning context. So we'll be sharing about that. So if I may start with the second slide, please. So we all know that this concept GCED has a very broad coverage. It aims to empower learners of all ages, not just those studying in institutions, to assume an active role both at home and globally. And the end objective is for all of us to build a more peaceful, tolerant, inclusive, and secure societies. And in relation to the 17 SDG goals, the GCED is tagged into target 4.7, which concerns two things. One is education for sustainable development, which the other speakers have already touched on. And then it also concerns global citizenship. Next slide, please. So when we talk about global citizenship education, we have to bear in mind that learning happens in 3 dimensions. So we have the cognitive dimension, wherein there are specific knowledge and mental skills that we want to inculcate in students, like them knowing why being a global citizenship is so important in nowadays, as well as the critical thinking skills that they ought to develop. So these are all in the cognitive dimension. And then we have the social emotional learning. Why is it that we need to have the skills to be able to share a common humanity, to share values across countries, to develop empathy, to build solidarity? So these are all located within the social emotional domain. And then by just knowing and by just having the attitude is not enough. When we in education want students to learn something, we also want them to apply it. So naturally, it then concerns the behavioral domain. So we put what the students learn about in the classroom into action. So these are the 3 dimensions that we should bear in mind when we talk about global citizenship education. When delivering GCED, there are always discussions about how to do it. So multiple approaches, but person A, educator A may differ from educator B in his or her approaches. But most of these approaches do not depart from one another. They basically concern a number of areas, like, for example, when we deliver GCED, it should be a lifelong learning perspective. It does not start or end in the school system. It continues on in post-secondary, into higher education, into continuing education, and it's actually a whole lifetime thing, okay? We want all ages to be included, and that means to say all the learners that are involved in learning about GCED, they have to have active participation. They all should be active learners. And we have to bear in mind as well that since it's not only the school system, the higher education system that should be teaching about GCED, therefore, apart from the formal learning that happens in institutions, we are also concerned about non-formal learning and even day-to-day activities that fall into the domain of informal learning. So all these 3 areas, formal, non-formal, informal, they can be good venues for delivering GCED. And in that sense, the location of global citizenship education can be in structured educational programs. And it can also be located in extracurricular activities. And in our context, we actually do a lot of GCED located in extracurricular space. And bearing in mind that we're teaching about something that happens on a daily basis, therefore, the topic has to be very practically oriented in order for the students to be able to absorb it. And when you look at various government public policy documents, you will find that there are some specific themes that concern GCED. Like, for example, some educators may be more concerned about teaching through GCED on how to achieve the prevention of violent extremism, peace education in that sense, concerns about languages in education, minority groups in society, how should their languages be respected apart from the dominant language or the official language in the country, autonomous regions, things like that. And then something that's very important for our modern society, in order for us to live peacefully, to respect each other, is about the promotion of the rule of law. So a very good area wherein the teaching of the rule of law can be located is actually in global citizenship education. And then how do you actually implement it? Now it concerns the specific methods that will be used in the classroom. So do we really teach GCED as an independent subject? If you look at many literatures, they would say, well, it doesn't really need to be an independent subject, although in the school system, many countries do have one subject called citizenship education, but it can be more than citizenship education. Is there any effective pedagogy? My answer to that, I think, from our reflection here in our school is that any method that would work to bring about learning would be equally effective. Does it have to have a separate curriculum framework? Of course, if you package it into a school subject or into a standalone subject, then you would have a curriculum. But then you could also have something that is loosely organized, that can equally deliver the essence of global citizenship education. And then, are there different ways to assess the 3 dimensions of learning? Probably yes, because you're talking about learning that happens in 3 dimensions: cognitive, social, emotional, and also behavioral. So you probably won't be applying the way you assess learning in the cognitive dimension, we call, into the behavioral domain, and that doesn't work. As PEP educators, we all understand that. And then when we talk about global citizenship education, because of the word global, does it mean to say that we look less on our own community? We emphasize the global more than the local community? That is not the case, because what we want to do is to reflect on our local situation and think about what's happening around the world, to look at similarities and to narrow down differences. So the global and the local are actually united. They are not pushed out as 2 separate poles. Okay. So how does global citizenship education connect with technical vocational education and training? If you look at this diagram, I would say that 2 areas of concern to TVET, to technical vocational education and training, are particularly salient to the area of global citizenship education. One is migration. The fact that we have displaced populations all around the world because of economic situations, people move from one area to another because they want to seek employment opportunities. They want security out of war, out of famine, and they also, in general, they want to have a better lives. So migration does happen on a regular basis. So when people go from area A to B, they bring with them skills, but these skills have to be acknowledged by the new location where they transfer to. So there, apart from people migrating as a phenomenon, you also have the issue of how do you recognize the skill sets that they already have, and for them to contribute positively to the society that they will be integrating to. So this is one very important area in TVET, migration, that is closely connected to our concerns in global citizenship education. Another area is the green one, the greening of the economy, which is often talked about in technical, vocational, and training. So this connects with the sustainable development issue. We are not only concerned about our current generation, we protect the environment because we want our future generation to enjoy it, to be able to have the same quality of life or even better quality of life than we have at the present moment. So how do we secure the future? And that is through sustainable methods of running the economy, like circular economy. So this somehow also connects with global citizenship education. So GCED is very, very well connected to TVET. And this is made very clear in the UNESCO strategy for the next phase for TVET in 2022 to 2029. It says that skills development is for empowerment, productive employment, decent work, facilitating the transition to more digital, green, and inclusive economies and societies. And as mentioned earlier, so development of skills for all individuals to learn, to work, and to live, and then to develop skills for inclusive and sustainable economies, to develop skills for inclusive and peaceful societies. So this is the way GCED is connected to TVET. It is enshrined in the documents that are guiding the development of TVET in the next few years until the year 2030. Okay. So let me explain, having gone through the concept of GCED and how does it connect to TVET, I'd like to explain the situation of Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. First of all, I'd like to draw from a piece of research that was done some years ago. Although the research may be a little bit outdated, I think the phenomenon stays the same. So the question is, why is it that Hong Kong students need global citizenship education? And they need it more so for technical vocational education. So this was a study that was done to compare the perceptions of secondary school teachers in two cities, Hong Kong and Shanghai. So how do the teachers understand about the priorities of delivering global citizenship education in secondary schools, and also the level of interest in secondary students about global issues? So let's look at the data. On the left-hand side, you would see the perception of teachers about the level of interest of their students when we talk about global issues in secondary school classrooms. The result shows that in Hong Kong, the local students in Hong Kong are actually more interested in local issues than in global issues. And the figures the figures actually points out a very large contrast, because it's 69% more interested in local issues rather than 3.6% interested in global issues. And then those who are equally interested is 17%, and those equally not interested at all, either in local issues or global issues, is 10%. But if you look at the case of Shanghai, you would find that it's a completely different story, because the Shanghai students are equally interested in knowing about their local issues and in knowing about the global issues. And there's a negligible number of students who say, I'm not interested at all in either local issues or global issues. So this is the kind of the level of interest among the students. So what about the level of the prioritization among the secondary school teachers when they teach global citizenship education? In other words, why do they want to teach global citizenship education to their students? Again, let's look at the priorities that they have set for Hong Kong, one being the highest. For Hong Kong teachers, they think that GCED is important because they want their students to understand and accept diverse values. And the least priority that is accorded by teachers is to enhance the students' future competencies. So it's more, I think it's more of getting the students to know the issues, the cognitive dimension. Whereas in the case of Shanghai, you would find that they place the topmost priority in enhancing the students' future competitiveness. And in that sense, economically, how to make themselves more productive. So you can see that with this as the background, I would say that it's rather more difficult to teach the relevance of GCED to TVET in Hong Kong rather than in Shanghai. Okay, and then there are some specific issues that concern our society that I would like to share with you one by one. So these are what I call pressing issues in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, which is part of China. First thing is economic integration. For us, Hong Kong is very much an economic city. We are, I think, number 7 or number 8 in the world as a trading economy. It's a very small place, just 1,100 square kilometers, but we rank very highly in terms of the scale of our external trade. So we're number 7, number 8 in the world in terms of trading. And since economy is our lifeline, we want our students to be competitive. And to be competitive, that means to say they need to understand that economic integration is so essential to the future of our economy. And when I say economic integration, they need to know about 2 important trends. On the right-hand side is a map of our neighboring region. It's called the Greater Bay Area. And the yellow, the red area consists of 11 cities, including Hong Kong. This area is used to be called the Pearl River Delta region. It's a main driver of economy in southern China. So what happens is that the economic policy of China nowadays is to have integration of the 2 special administrative regions, Hong Kong and Macau, into the neighboring 9 cities in the Pearl River Delta to make up the Greater Bay Area economic region, which has a combined population size of 80 million. This combined population size of 80 million is much, much larger than a number of neighboring economies, like, for example, South Korea has a population of around 50 to 55 million, whereas this combined region that we're talking about has 80 million. So it's such scale of significance. The other integration is integration into the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, the RCEP, which consists of 15 countries in the region. And China is a member of that, including Japan, Korea, and Australia and New Zealand, as well as the 10 countries in ASEAN. So we want our students to have cognitive domain ability, the cognitive gain in this area, knowing about the importance of economic integration. Okay. The next thing is about the labor force issue. We have a general population decline. We used to have a population size of 7.8 million. It has gone down to 7.4 million. Concomitant with the decrease in population size, we have 2 very serious issues. One is aging population, which currently stands at 21% of the population is aged 65 years or older. So aging workforce. The other one is our labor force, because of the aging workforce, will eventually drop to 3.1 million by the year 2066. So in other words, we need to import labor. And when we import labor, that there is migration. So I mentioned a while ago about the issue of migrating populations into Hong Kong and into other places, wherein their skills need to be recognized. So in our society, we have ethnic minority, we have foreign migrant workers, we have new migrants from China. So all these pockets of population, totally, they take up about 8% of our population, 600,000 people. They are the minority, they need to be integrated. The next issue is about the rule of law, which is very important. We have gone through phases of instability. Fortunately, we're now into more stable times. And the basis for the Special Administrative Regions organization is the basic law. So all the students in Hong Kong need to know about the basic law. And why is it so important? Because the basic law touches on certain aspects of our linkages with the outside world, like in the areas of education, science, technology, culture, arts, sports, professional domains, medicine, health, labor, social welfare, social work, as well as religion. We have a very high level of autonomy to conduct our own affair, but that has to be within the specific scope of the basic law. So students need to know about that as well. Our approach in delivering GCED, I would like to sum it up through this slide, is that we deliver it through co- and extracurricular learning, through what we call in this institution, in my school, we call it the 3I initiatives. We have internationalization in place, inclusion, and intercultural awareness. So through it, we aim to impart an understanding about the rule of law, global regional economic interdependence, intercultural awareness, inclusion in local society, issues confronting our society and other societies, like, for example, aging population, escalation in healthcare needs, digitalization of our working lives, in our private lives as well. The learning that we organize for our students through the extracurricular activities is structured around the 3 dimensions mentioned a while ago, the cognitive, the social emotional, and the behavioral domains. And we try to integrate them. We do not separate them. Ultimately, they have to come together. The outcome is to prepare our students for a sustainable workplace that would respect diversity and support the continuous development of themselves and others in Hong Kong. So with these explanations, I would like to turn over to my colleague, Betty. Betty is the senior lecturer and the head of extracurricular learning. She would share with you some of the case studies, how we implement the 3I in our place. Okay, yes. So Betty, please.
Yes, thank you, Dean Dr. Benjamin Chen, and good morning, afternoon, and evening to all of you for participating in this workshop. So today I'm going to briefly walk you through the 3 examples about how our school implement the global citizenship education. So example number 1 is about learning about the basic law and Hong Kong SAR's special status in global economy. This falls into the cognitive dimension. And so what my colleagues did was to implement workshops, lectures from different speakers so the students can get to know more about basic law, because honestly, they were born after the year when basic law was implemented in Hong Kong. So that reminds us of how old we are now. Well, anyway, that aside, they were also invited to join the interactive quizzes online, but then the learning didn't just stop there. This learning about basic law was accompanied by the active demonstration of the students' ability to externalize their understanding by way of very interesting video production and story writing. So we invited students to write their stories after learning about the basic law. And to our surprise and to our amazement, a large number of students teamed up and submitted their entries into this competition. And being there in the final and the award ceremony, I have to say, everything was marvelously made by our students. And you can see from some of the captions here. Now, another example is about the awareness of health inequality in minorities. And this falls into the socio-emotional dimension. There are a lot of ethnic minorities coexisting in Hong Kong and residing in Hong Kong for generations. So realizing that they may lack the health knowledge that's necessary for them to get going in life, our students actually led a program, a radio program that helps the ethnic minorities to raise their awareness for health-related issues. And this results in the participation in a community radio program that's funded by RTHK. So students not only invited the health experts to address those problems or health topics, but also they invited the ethnic minorities in Hong Kong to come into the studio and also share with the Hong Kong audience about their current living situations and also their concerns. So I have to say this is a very interesting initiative. And if you feel interested, please do scan the QR code and listen to our program. Your comment will be very welcome. And example number 3 is the introduction to foreign cultures through passive talks on festivities, food, and pastimes. Well, as we can see from the pictures, they're all from the monthly activities or events from 3i initiatives, and they are mainly separated into 3 categories. One is about the Chinese culture, and you can see that our students and staff actually dressed up in hanfu, and this activity is a yearly activity that is very well received by students and staff of different cultural backgrounds. Another kind of activity is about learning about the cultures around the world. So for example, you can see from the picture, our students learned about the African cultures, and we played drums together, and we actually jammed arts together. And that was very productive learning. And another kind of activity is about learning of our non-Chinese peers studying together with us. So what we did was we held the Eid al-Fitr celebration or Chandlat preparation to celebrate the Muslim New Year with our Muslim students. And also the Chinese students or students of other culture backgrounds, they joined the event and they studied from each other about different cultures, and they exchanged about the differences and similarities in their own cultures and religions. So these very nice activities actually leads to off-campus excursions for the students to see and experience different cultures. For example, we can see from our right-hand side, left-hand side, I'm sorry, very bad with directions. So we actually toured around the building that is called Chongqing Mansions, and that is a very famous building in Hong Kong. You can view it as the conglomerate of different cultures existing in Hong Kong, and also it's full of international tourists or visitors as well. So our students joined the tour and they talked to the shop owners, they tried different kinds of food, and also they immersed themselves in this culture. And also, apart from that, the students also partnered up with our local ethnic minority organizations, and they had a very lively and fun cricket game learning just next to our campus. So these are the embodiment of the excursions off campus. So the learning can be from campus, on campus, off campus. The friendship can also be on campus and to off campus. So hopefully these 3 examples can give everyone a glimpse of how our school has been implementing the global citizenship education. And we thank you very much for listening. And we would also like to extend our invitation to all of you to become a potential partner in holding these meaningful educational initiatives together. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Jiang Xie and your colleagues. This case study has presented a compelling real-life scenario that we challenge our thinking and still need meaningful thinking and discussions. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, and now we are truly delighted to have Ms. Dai Chun, head to enlighten us with her insights and perspectives using a global citizenship study from Korea Research Institute for Vocational Education and Training in Republic of Korea. And Ms. Dai Chun is the PRMET coordinator of the local network, Republic of Korea. She is the research associate of Korea Research Institute for Vocational Education and Training. She is a member of Center for International Cooperation and working as a local coordinator. She supports various international cooperative relations which activate for the role of coordinating center in Eastern and Southeast Asia. She received a master's degree of development policy in PDI Public Policy and Management School, and her contributions are sustainable development and public finance. So now, join me in welcome Ms. Tahi Chu to present at this international workshop. Okay, Ms.
Hi.
Yeah.
Thank you, James, for introducing me. My name is Tahi Choi. I'm a research associate at the Korea Research Institute for Vocational Education and Training. Currently, I'm a member of Center for International Cooperation and acting as a UNEVO coordinator. Since CRIVET is a UNEVO cluster coordinating center among East and South Asia countries, we welcome again the Shaanxi Polytechnic Institute's joint UNEVOC Center, and congratulations on hosting today's workshop. So in today's workshop, I'd like to share global citizenship education case studies in South Korea. Actually, I'm not a specialist in global citizenship education, but as a person who studied development policy and as a UNEVO coordinator, I'd like to make some suggestions and want to share what I found for preparing for today's workshop. So these are my contents today. In the introduction part, I'd like to share World Education Forum, which was a monumental event in South Korea to promote global citizenship education. And in the second part, I'd like to introduce the Ministry of Education's policy on GCED. The reason I put this part is that we could see how government is acting on GCED and their stance on GCED. So in the third part, as a researcher in CRIVET, I'd like to share Korea Collegiate Essential Skills Assessment, which is called KCESA. And then in the conclusion part, I'd like to make some suggestions in perspective of international cooperations. Okay, everyone knows the context of GCED, so I want to make it simple. So with the progress of globalizations, exchanges of resources have become more active across borders. But at the same time, global problems such as poverty, human rights, climate issues, and other problems that cannot be solved at a single national level have also expanded. The international community emphasized the cultivation of GCED through education to understand and jointly solve these problems. So under this background, the World Education Forum held in Incheon, Korea in May 15th expanded GCED as one of the global educational agendas and set it as a common goal to be achieved by 2030. Actually, I prepared the research trends on GCED before 2015 because it could be good to know the research trends. Based on this, you would be able to have better understanding how the GCED research trends has been changed. Actually, this study is conducted by Dr. Hwan-Bo Park and Hae-Sung Choi and published in Korean Journal of Educational Research. So they analyzed 255 studies conducted between 1995 and 2016 to reveal the research trends on GCED according to six criteria: study periods, the field of study like theoretical work or case studies, research topics, educational stages. For instance, in the study was conducted in general education or high school education like that, and research methods and academic journal characteristics. So they found that 96 studies related to GCED for about 15 years from 1995 to 2009, but 158 studies were published over about only 6 years from 2010 to early 2016. So this study shows that studies related to GCED has rapidly expanded after the year 2015. So in relation with concept as democratic civic education or multicultural education, the GCED studies were rapidly expanded. Since then, related study has continued to be conducted since 2015 in Korea. Now let's get back to 2015. The government at the time showed their strong will and said, we will support the spread of GCED with wisdom to live together based on understanding the respect for differences. In practice, through the revision of the education curriculum in 2015, the Ministry of Education presented community capabilities that actively participate in community development with values and attitudes required of members of local, national, and global communities as key competencies. Since then, the policy in early stage was related to the spread of GCED. The Ministry of Education developed GCED model and educational materials that can be used in each school level, aligned with domestic educational environment that can be used in school. Asia Pacific Century of UNESCO, which is APCU, established Global Citizenship Campus to find solutions how to solve common problems between students. In order to raise college students' awareness of GCED, it began to hold an excellent lecture contest for higher education institutions. Regarding international cooperation, Ministry of Education held a workshop on GCED for college students in Korea, Japan, and China. The Ministry of Education also supported activities to strengthen GCED in developing countries. Since it has, in addition, the related budget increased about 5 times compared to the previous year. Also, a separate budget called Support for GCED was newly established and included in this plan. Since then, 7 or 8 years has passed, so it would be good to know their stance on GCED. In 2017 and 2018, actually the word GCED has disappeared from their official policy, but under the theme of revitalizing corporations, it seems they indirectly wanted to include GCED. So they offered ODA or offer activities in developing countries to promote GCED. In 2019 and 2020, the GCED has become more diverse. So GCED education was divided into multicultural education or education for North Korean defectors, democratic citizenship educations, and like that. This seems to be intended to deliver GCED in diverse aspects for students. Actually, in 2021, everyone knows that this is the year when the COVID-19 situation was very serious, and most of policies focused on the accessibilities of students. However, this year is also the year when carbon neutrality was brought to the forefront of the ministry's policies. This is to have perspective and the educational system. The students think of the environment from a sustainable development beyond the present era to see the future era and think what's going on in the future era. So in 2022, in the revised educational curriculum, they presented creativity, innovation, inclusion, and citizenship, and suggested that education should emphasize global citizenship competency. In year 2023, education on multicultural acceptance and understanding of schools was emphasized. In addition, the 40 schools were selected by MOE, and they announced the support for implementation of climate crisis capabilities from sustainable development perspective. So to sum up, at the first stage, policies were concentrated on the spread of GCED, and then education to understand others like such as democratic or multicultural educations, were conducted in official policy. But recently, it has shown that the education system is trying to cultivate students' perspective of thinking about future era. So in this part, I'd like to introduce what CRIVET is doing in relation to global citizenship. Actually, CRIVET is a research institute, not a training school or university. So under this identity, CRIVET, the vision of CRIVET is realizing a stable life for all individuals and activating TVET through research on vocational competency and develop the capacity of citizens. So these are 4 main activities: enhancing policy research for digital and green transition and resolve social inequality, building a flexible and stable system for lifelong education, improving research outcomes based on the research network, and shaping a happy workplace for all staff and for families. So under the identity of research institutes, we have KSESA data, and it stands for the Korea Collegiate Essential Skills Assessment. This is an online diagnostic system that diagnoses the current level of competency required by the professional world through university education. The survey is for Korean university students and was developed by the Ministry of Education and CRIVET together. As the environment changes, new survey items are added. Actually, the purpose of conducting KSESA is to diagnose the essential skills from university students, to provide data on the development and improvement of educational curricula and programs, to strengthen their capabilities, and to provide self-development guide for students to prepare the future employment skills, and to foster talent to meet social changes and cooperative needs. There are 6 main diagnostic areas: self-management capabilities, resource and technology utilization, communication, interpersonal and global capabilities, and comprehensive thinking capabilities. Actually, the word global capability is not exactly same as global citizenship education, but the context is same. So in global capabilities part, the survey evaluates university students' abilities in relation to the global environments, such as knowledge and understanding of multiculturalism and the knowledge of global economy. In particular, the survey measures the flexibilities and attitudes from university students to other cultures. According to the results of 2022 survey, male students showed higher global capabilities than female students. It also found that the higher the grade, the higher the global capabilities. Actually, in particular, South Korea, the problem of population concentrations in urban area like Seoul or Gyeonggi province between non-urban area is very serious. In terms of global capabilities, students in urban area were also higher than non-urban area. In addition, it was found that the more students in the school, the better the global capabilities. This means that the competency related to the global citizenship is not equally presented by everyone. The global citizenship is a concept of being more inclusive and fostering the power to solve common problems together. However, the GCED is not provided equally to our students, so I think this is a problem to be solved in the future. So in today's workshop, it was a good opportunity for me to hear various thoughts and concepts in other institutions or countries. But I also like to make some suggestions after sharing my personal thoughts on GCED. Number 1 is agree theoretical concepts. Actually, GCED is a global trend, but still agreed definitions, pedagogical methods, and related curricula have not yet been established. Also, the GCED is not mandatory subject in Korea, so some teachers lack the capacity to deliver the concepts to their students. It is necessary to discuss the meanings and have sufficient discussion on what should be delivered by GCED. And the number 2 is curriculum beyond formal education learning. I think most of people can agree that GCED mostly focus on general education or elementary school education. So even if I am working in TVET area, so I strongly say that GCED should be provided in terms of lifelong learning beyond general education systems, and more GCED needs to be delivered within higher education in TVET. And as a person working in international cooperation field, I'd like to say that international cooperation on GCED is needed like today's workshop, and cooperative research should be and could be conducted among institutions and countries. Thank you for listening, and this is my email address, and the second email address is our center's email address, so you could reach me if you have any questions or want to share some thoughts on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Nikhil. This is another fascinating case study presented by Ms. Dahin Chu. Each presenter brings a unique perspective and expertise to the table, making this case study truly enlightening and thought-provoking. Thank you very much, Ms. Dahin Chu. So now we are in time for panel questions and answer sessions. Let me see. Do you have any questions at the chat room? Yes.
I'm going to allow Vida, who has raised her hand, to ask a question. She should appear on your screen very shortly.
Yes. So if you have any questions, you can raise your hands and or you answer questions to our panelists. Yes, Wanda Hintes.
So
please.
Yes, you can
Yes.
ask the question. Yes, Vida. Your Vida, your microphone is muted.
Hello, Vida Kante. You mute your sound. You mute your sound. You can ask questions. Open your sound.
That was the only one that at this stage had raised their hand to ask a question, James. So there must be some technical difficulties with Vida. So
Okay. Okay, it's regret. So if you have questions, you can get in the chat room.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Hello. Hello.
yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so I want to ask, how can you incorporate this one into the Technical and Vocational Institute? Because I'm a proprietress and I'm dealing with two, those who are unfortunate and those who are fortunate to go to school. So how can you incorporate this one into the curriculum?
What we have to do is take easy steps, and what we need to think about is the practicalities. What are the small steps we can take? And the first small step we can take is to acknowledge where the people come from and who they are, what we call their cultural self. So that is the very first step. And then the second step is for us to appreciate all of those with different cultures, different approaches within our classroom. And when I talk about culture, it doesn't have to be country culture, because an older person has quite a slightly different sense of what they're being than a younger person. So we have to have the young respect the old, and that is a thing, as well as countries accepting each other's cultures. and as well as male and female, except in different perspectives that might occur with those different things. So it is a matter of just understanding and respecting people at a very basic level, recognizing who they are, where they come from, and valuing them as people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think I'll have more questions, but for now, I'm okay.
Thank you. Thank you. So anyone has questions to ask our panelists? Okay. Okay, if you have no questions, we will continue our presentations. So now I would like to invite you to watch the video remarks from Professor Shahbaz Khair. Professor Shahbaz Khair is the Director of UNESCO Multi-Sector Regional Office for East Asia and the UNESCO representative to the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Japan, Mongolia, People's Republic of China, and the Republic of Korea. Professor Khair joined UNESCO in 2008 at its headquarters as Chief of the Water and Sustainable Development Section. He has worked in Australia, France, Indonesia, and Pakistan in various research, consultings, and policy positions around hydrology and sustainable development. His work has been widely recognized in China. Yeah. In 2019, he won China Friendship Award and the Great Wall Friendship Award in 2017. Professor Khair holds an honor doctorate in environment and development from the National University of Malaysia and honor DC from the University of Birmingham. So we warmly welcome Professor Shahbaz Khair to give supporting comments through the video for this workshop. Please.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to today's workshop that is dedicated to technical and vocational education and training with the lens of global citizenship education. I wish to welcome all to the participants who are attending either on-site or virtually. Let me begin by acknowledging the close partnership and collaboration between UNESCO, UNIVOC, Shanxi Polytechnic. It is clearly demonstrating the firm commitment and dedication of the two institutions to work together to promote TVET at the sub-regional level. As one of the newly approved UNIVOC centers and UNESCO, we wish to deepen our collaboration with Shanxi Polytechnic. Today's workshop echoes with the call made by the Transforming Education Summit convened by UN Secretary General in September 2022, and TVET is a very important part of it. In essence, global citizenship education is one of UNESCO's responses to the widely existing global challenges as the world is recovering from COVID-19 related education disruptions and time to revitalize the achievement of SDG 4 and for us to reimagine education systems of today and tomorrow. It works by empowering learners of all ages to understand that these challenges and how we can be active promoters of more peaceful, tolerant, inclusive, secure, and sustainable societies. We need to instill new values in learners and better attitudes and behaviors that can support responsible global citizenship, creativity, innovation, and commitment to peace, human rights, and sustainable development. Ladies and gentlemen, in the era of globalization, the TVET students must be exposed to global issues, values, and globalization matters, hence becoming a well-rounded global citizen with skills and competencies to enable TVET graduates to secure jobs at any part of the world. In this context, education needs more peaceful and sustainable future for all. That's where we need the 21st century education linked with the fourth industrial revolution, combining technical and soft skills together, provided by GCED. GCED has the potential to bolster our responses to global challenges. This potential is not always well understood and capitalized. GCED can become a driving force to build a labor market which is inclusive and which is more sustainable. This is actually need to be well reflected by revisioning of the TVET systems. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to work together to progress SDGs, and especially by learning to live together sustainably. That is the way we can build a new future for TVET, and better policy, better strategy, better program design, and through better capacity building of the teachers and better student assessments. We need to bring education of values, attitudes, and behaviors of being a global citizenship as an important part of TVET knowledge and technical skills. The major challenges for TVET system institutions to integrate GCED in the curricula and training programs need to be carefully studied, and that's where we need to bring the idea of how to integrate TVET and GCED through practical examples. And that's where today's workshop will provide useful insights into practices and ideas to integrate GCED and TVET. I wish to conclude by reiterating UNESCO's commitment towards mainstreaming and strengthening GCED at all levels of education, including in TVET systems. I wish you a very productive and successful meeting. Thank you very much.
I would like to express my utmost appreciation to Director Khan for his invaluable contribution to this workshop. His visionary leadership and a profound impact on UNESCO Beijing office have set a remarkable example for all of us and to ISPI local center. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, it's now my pleasure to introduce Mr. Robert Porro, Education Program Specialist, UNESCO Class Office, who will be our next speaker to give a video presentation. Mr. Robert Porro is an education specialist in UNESCO Central Regional Office for East Asia that covers China, South Korea, Democratic Republic of Korea, Mongolia, Japan. Prior to Beijing, Mr. Porro has 26 years experiences with UNESCO in the education sector at their headquarters in Paris, and in the various UNESCO field offices in Salmon, Jordan, and Jamaica. Mr. Porro has extensive experience in the design and advice in education policies, planning, and strategies, capacity development of the educator sector, including TVET and skill development, and supporting geographical centers in many regions. As an accomplished professional in policy with a remarkable background in education, policy, and planning, Mr. Robert Porro will be sharing policy review of UNESCO Global Citizen Education. Now, let us watch Mr. Robert Porro's video presentation at this workshop.
Good morning, everyone. It is a great pleasure to represent UNESCO Beijing office to share UNESCO's work on global citizenship education. I firstly would like to begin by acknowledging Professor John Clayton, Professor Chin, international and Chinese participants, experts, staff and students of Changxi Polytechnic Institute. And I personally would like to also acknowledge Te Ware Wananga o Awaniu Irangui Institute in New Zealand, the UNESCO UNIVOC Center, Jiangxi, for organizing this very important workshop focused on outcome-based education, cultural awareness, global citizenship, and the workshop's aims and objectives are closely aligned with UNESCO's mission that underlines the fundamental principles and theories of TVET for global citizenship and share advanced practices and experience from global TVET community. So essentially my presentation this morning is a very brief presentation on what UNESCO had been doing on global citizenship education. A very brief introduction on the background and some of the achievements and challenges that we have faced in implementing the global citizenship education. So what is UNESCO's role in promoting GCED at the global level? Education transforms lives and is at the heart of UNESCO's mission to build peace, eradicate poverty, and drive sustainable development. While the world may be increasingly interconnected, human rights violations, inequality, and poverty still threaten peace and sustainability today. So global citizenship education empowers the learners of all ages to understand that these are global and not local issues, and to become more active promoters of more peaceful, tolerant, inclusive, secure, and sustainable societies. GCED aims to instill in learners the values, the attitudes, and the behaviors that support responsible global citizenship in creativity, in innovation, commitment to peace and human rights, and sustainable development. So the TVET institutions have a very fundamental role to play to instill the values, attitudes, and behaviors in the young TVET students and graduates. So what is global citizenship education? Global citizenship education aims to empower learners of all ages and also learners in TVET institutions to assume active role both locally and globally in building more peaceful, tolerant, inclusive, and a secure society. So fundamentally, GCED is based on 3 domains of learning. The cognitive domain that looks at knowledge and thinking skills necessary to better understand the world and its complexities. The second is the socio-emotional domain that focuses on values, attitudes, social skills that enable learners to develop effectively psychosocially and physically, and to enable them to live together with others respectfully and peacefully. The third domain looks at the behavioral aspects of it. It's the conduct, the performance, the practical application, and the engagement. So what has prompted the surge of interest in global citizenship education? And UNESCO had been very pleased to drive that global effort. Basically 2 developments that has provided the 2 key impetus for the world community to pay attention to this particular topic on global citizenship education at the policy level. So the first was the Global Education First Initiative, GEFI, launched in 2012 by the United Nations Secretary General, that includes global citizenship education as one of those 3 priorities. along with access and quality of education. With the Jeffrey Global Initiative, the World Education Community entered a new era in which education is expected to contribute to the fulfilling of individual and national aspirations, ensuring the well-being of all humanity and global community. And in 2015, the global citizenship education was included as one of the topic areas of target 4.7 of the Sustainable Development Goals. So what are the achievements and challenges in the implementation of GSET program at the global, regional, and country level by UNESCO? So I would highlight some of the key achievements in terms of policy impact. So education ministers have now paid attention to how they could now integrate GSET in all the programs, including curriculum, teacher training, etc. So the policy impact has been a significant achievement. 2, capacity has been strengthened in GSET in many countries and regions with the support of the UNESCO Category 2 Center, APSIU, have really partnered with UNESCO to build more capacity. My colleagues from APSIU who will be speaking will highlight some of the work that they have done. Advocacy and awareness. We have raised a lot of advocacy and awareness on the critical importance of global citizenship education. Sharing good practices, promoting good resource materials and guidelines have been also disseminated. We now also have a global GSET network spearheaded by APSIU that is constantly promoting global citizenship education. We still face some of the challenges, the slow pace of implementation and mainstreaming of GSET at all levels of education system, the slow pace of policy integration as well. So we have some of the existing education policies that have been limited integration of GSET. There also slow pace of integration of GSET in the curriculum, slow pace of and a very lack of clear understanding of GSET concepts and frameworks. Finally, a lack of integration of GSET in TVET programs and TVET curriculum. So the workshop today will raise awareness among TVET stakeholders on the critical importance of integrating global citizenship education into TVET programs. One of the other ongoing international instrument, which we call the Recommendations Concerning Education for International Understanding, Cooperation and Peace and Education Relating to Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms, have been reviewed by UNESCO and will be adopted at the upcoming UNESCO General Conference that will lay out the global framework to promote these global values within a international framework for cooperation and partnership. So the GSET in the Sustainable 2030 Agenda has been a very significant achievement and a very significant progress. So target 4.7 is a very specific recommendation target that has highlighted the importance of global citizenship education. So target 4.7 of the SDG 4 on education calls on countries to ensure that all learners are provided with the knowledge and the skills to promote sustainable development, including, among others, through the Education for Sustainable Development, and sustainable lifestyles, human rights, gender equality, promotion of a culture of peace, non-violence, global citizenship, and appreciation of cultural diversity and the culture's contribution to sustainable development. So you can see here the global citizenship is very firmly embedded in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So what are the core areas of action by UNESCO and GCED at the global, regional, and local level? So UNESCO had been promoting and scaling up policy dialogue and advice to member countries to mainstream GCED in education policies, in platforms like teacher training programs, in education for sustainable development policies, etc. So the policy dialogue and advice has been a very critical action by UNESCO. The second, UNESCO has been providing technical assistance capacity building to member states. Third, we have acted as an important catalyst for international cooperation, facilitating a number of global, regional, and international conferences. APSIO had successfully organized annual global conferences on GCED, and the colleagues from APSIO will highlight some of the achievements of the conference. The fourth action area by UNESCO is on standard setting and normative instruments and conventions. I just highlighted you the 1974 recommendation on education for international understanding as a very clear international instrument or framework that will guide the countries on mainstreaming human rights, global citizenship education, and other values in the education system. Last but not the least, promoting good practices has been a key area for UNESCO's work on promoting good practice with other countries so that we can enhance the knowledge sharing function, knowledge sharing to ensure that some of the good practice and models from other countries are adapted in other countries. So some of the key thematic areas, special thematic areas, I would call it, preventing violent extremism through education. Education about Holocaust and genocide, languages in education, promotion of the rule of law through a global citizenship education. We work very closely with UNESCO national commissions in every country and ministries of education and other line ministries such as the Ministry of Culture and so on and so forth. Our work on global citizenship has been very strongly supported by the UNESCO Category 2 Center, APSIO, in South Korea, that has played a very significant role in building capacity, promoting policy dialogue, sharing good practices, research, and a number of very good and excellent publications and guidelines. So we thank our partner for really closely working with UNESCO to really advance and promote the agenda of global citizenship education. So what is the relevance of global citizenship to the contemporary world? The important first dimension is the information, the phenomenal advances in information and communication technologies. The second, the increased transnational migration is an important dimension. The third, we still have tension and conflicts among populations that have caused an impact beyond national boundaries and challenges for sustainable development, example, climate change. So these are the fundamental basis and relevance for global citizenship education, to connect and interact with others around the world anywhere, anytime, forming an intensified perception and reality of being interconnected and living beyond local perimeters, making local communities inevitable for heterogeneous engagement. increasing the need to learn how to live together, for example, calling for cooperation and collective actions at global and local levels. So why global citizenship education should be implemented in TVET program? Firstly, in light of the increased mobility of TVET graduates between countries and regions and globalization, we need to better equip and better prepare TVET graduates with the right skills, knowledge, and mindset to go and seek employment in other countries and other regions. So it is very important to better equip the TVET graduates. And also, many of the TVET graduates are now are working in many of the global corporations. So increasingly, you can see the linkages between the importance of TCET being embedded and integrated in TVET programs that will equip the TVET graduates. So that's a fundamental reason why global citizenship is very important for the TVET program. Mainstreaming GCET in TVET and general education systems, including curriculum, teacher training, and assessment, is very important. I also would like to emphasize the importance of resources are not sufficient to address all the topics. It is natural to prioritize in this process global and local level citizenship education, if prioritized, can be treated as an entry point to address the other topics such as human rights, culture of peace, non-violence, and cultural diversity. Education for sustainable development could also serve as a useful entry point for global citizenship education themes and topics. For example, lifestyle, global citizenship, human rights, culture's contribution to sustainable development, etc. So it is very important that GCET must now be implemented in TVET programs and strategies and policies. The relevance of global citizenship education in TVET programs, it's important because it can also contribute to access as well as quality of education and the content of education in TVET settings. As I mentioned earlier about the cognitive skills, socio-emotional skills, and competencies for employment. It's very critical. Skills and competencies for learning to live together, for example. And education focused on assessment and education focused on relevance of education. So the world community is now asking if students are in school, in TVET colleges, what are they learning? And if what are they learning, will they contribute to make the world a better place for humanity? So what are some of the relationships between global citizenship education and TVET? So local populations have become increasingly aware with an increased need for the learners as part of the civic education to learn how to live together with those from different cultural and ethnic backgrounds. So global citizenship education reflects on the core values of global citizenship in civic education. And in civic education, it is the most important common landing ground for global citizenship education. The same logic could also apply to peace education, education for sustainable development, and education for international understanding, as they advocate for a spirit of global citizenship education. The focus should not be on the naming issue, but on the spirit and core values to be promoted, for which delivery modes, structures, as well as labels can vary. So how is global citizenship education related to education to prevent violent extremism? And this is one of the latest push by UNESCO to push the education sector to ensure that they have a fundamental role to play in to prevent violent extremism. So global citizenship education provides the conceptual antidotes to violent extremism. The TVET programs can also contribute to reduction in extreme violence. One of the fundamental principles of global citizenship education is the respect for diversity, while the principle of non-violence, empathy, and solidarity for humanity. The violent extremism does not tolerate diversity or difference of points of view. Violent extremism resorts to the use of violent forces to achieve an extremist ideology motivated objective. So the TVET institutions and the delivery of TVET programs can also effectively contribute to reduction in extreme violence, but it's on a smaller scale, larger scale, or even bigger scale, an extreme scale. So I want to now leave you with these very key recommendations to scale up GCED in the TVET sector. First is to promote GCED policy at ministry and TVET institution level to strengthen global citizenship education. Enhance institutional capacity of TVET experts and government officials in GCED. Strengthen the integration and mainstreaming of GCED at TVET institutions and programs. Support the integration and implementation of GCED in the TVET curriculum register in GCED network and coordinated by APSU to better understand GCED programs, concepts, etc. Advocacy and awareness on the SDG target 4.7 on ESD and GCED. Contribute to GCED dialogue via research and awareness raising. Students must become active facilitators to promote GCED at the institution level by creating GCED clubs and associations. And finally, contribute towards sharing good practice in GCED at TVET institutions at the national, regional, provincial, and community level. I wish you a very productive workshop. Thank you. CSA.
Thank you. We appreciate this doctor very much for the deep understanding of policy, which has provided us with valuable insights and the potential way forward. Okay, this